What's going on, everybody? This is the Undefeated by Choice podcast brought to you by Still Fist Fight. There's actually an event going on right now, Kickboxing. I was not able to make it because I'm on daddy duty this weekend, and my little girl didn't want to go, and she gets what she wants. She's my princess. She's the queen, so she gets what she wants. So we stayed home today. I was watching some of the fights on Blitz TV. They're broadcasting it over the Still Fist page. If you go to Still Fist Fight Night, you're able to watch those. Obviously, by the time you watch this, it will be over with, and you won't be able to watch it. But the first fight of the night was actually super exciting. Kieran Merton, man, it was dude. He went in there and he got it done. It was a real exciting fight to watch because he's a debut fighter. And what I love is when debut fighters go in there and they it's not just a brawl where they just go wild and just throw like crazy. And we see that a lot, especially like I had someone asking me the other day if I wanted to do an amateur boxing bout, and I was like, not a chance. Not a chance. I hate watching amateur boxing. And okay, that's pretty disrespectful for me to say. There's lots of great amateur boxing, and it's really good to get that familiarity in the ring. And I take it back. I don't hate it, but I hate when I see people just go in and they swing wild and there's no real calculation of their punches. I like to see people really, picking their shots and taking their time. I like to see, the artistry of it and not the brutality of it. And so, but a lot of times, and so where the problem is with amateur boxing is it's a point system. So people go in there, throw as many punches as they can to rack up the points, and that's just not my style. And so for me, it wouldn't be good. I wouldn't win at amateur boxing because I'd be trying to pick my shots, trying to land big shots, but I would just be getting faced with a flurry of punches that I'd probably be on defense most of the time unless they gassed out, and then I could do my thing. So it's just not for me. I feel really bad about talking bad about amateur boxing because I actually really appreciate it and what it does for the sport. So I think this whole podcast is going to be an apology tour for me because I got a few things to say on past comments I made and past judgments I made. So this whole episode may be just me apologizing, but I also have some other complaints that came up this week, or as a matter of fact, came up just today. But anyways, Kieran Merton did a great job, and it looked like it was a good show. It looked like it was a packed event. So if you missed out on this one, make sure you're keeping and paying attention to Still Fist. Go to Still Fist Fight on Instagram, then go to Still Fist Fight Night on Facebook to keep up, and make sure you make it out at the next event if you can, if you're in Salt Lake City. I know I'm getting a couple more followers on this channel that aren't out of Utah, and so I'm going to start I'm going to keep talking about Still Fist because they are the organization, the promotion that put their faith in me and their belief in what I'm doing here. So I'm always going to talk about it. But our next MMA event is April 4th. I'm going to be talking about that, doing interviews here soon, so get ready for that. But in MMA news, in the bigger MMA news, the worldwide MMA news, this week we had today we had the Tony Ferguson Khabib press conference, and it was weird as we anticipated because Tony Ferguson is weird. He's a weird guy, and Khabib kept saying it, like, he's weird. I think he kept calling him stupid, and they were just so mad at each other. Ferguson was just going off, just cussing at Khabib, calling him all sorts of names, just acting like they've been in a rivalry. I mean, I guess they have been I didn't realize that they were in such a big rivalry, I guess, because the Khabib-Conor rivalry was like so well known and so big that I didn't realize that these two hated each other so bad. But it was just hurling insults back and forth. Every time Khabib had an answer, he would answer a question, Tony would jump in and just rail on him about what he just said or how he's going to beat his ass. And it was just like, dude, take a breath, calm down. You're going to fight this guy, hopefully, fingers crossed, we know with these two. But it was just, dude, there was so much animosity. I was like, Tony, what is the deal? Like, Khabib was doing his thing, like, I respect him as a man. I mean, he's saying, I respect him as a fighter. How can you not respect him as a fighter? And he's like, but as a man, he's crazy. And Tony was just like, I don't respect you as a fighter. Like, it was crazy. And Tony was like, at one point he was like trying to get like America on his side, and then he said he was a Mexican, and he said he's gonna get beat by a Mexican, and Khabib's like, oh, are you American or are you a Mexican? You don't even know what you are. Like, you're lying. You don't even know what you are. Are you American or are you Mexican? And Tony's like freaking out, dude. It was crazy. And I think something happened because, and I don't know the details behind this, and maybe because I came in late on the press conference, maybe they already spoke to it, or maybe this is like an old story. But Tony was saying that Khabib and his crew like cornered his family or circled his family or something like that. And I'm guessing this is where most of the anger came from, because he mentioned it a few times, but it was crazy. And then they do the face-off, and Tony has his belt, which is an old belt, and he lays it on the ground, and he's like, put your belt on the line, put your belt down, put your belt down. And Khabib's like, no, I'm not putting my belt down. He's like, put your belt down, put your belt down, put your belt on the line. Khabib's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And then Khabib's like so frustrated with him at this point, he kicks his belt and like almost kicks it off the stage. And Tony's like, he hates the UFC. I love the UFC. He hates it. He hates it. Look how disrespectful he is. I was just like, this is bonkers. This is wild. I mean, we all know El Kukui, man. We all know he's a weird dude. Oh, and the weirdest part was he's all dressed up in like a nice, vest, which, bro, who wears a vest? It's not 1993. Like, why are you wearing a silk vest? Like, I don't know people who wear vests anymore other than Tony Ferguson when he thinks he's dressing up. It's just like a silk shirt and a vest. Anyway, so he had that on. I think that's what he had on. I know I've seen him wear that outfit a million times. Maybe that's not what. But he like had nice clothes on, but then he had these weird like blue gloves. These weird like they looked like wrist braces, and then he had a baseball in his hand on the stage. I remember the last time they had like a media thing, he had like this ball in his hand that was like for like wrist strength and grip strength, and he was like doing it the whole time, like through the whole interview or the whole media press conference, and then this time he had a tennis ball, and I'm sure it was for grip strength again. And I'm like, dude, we get it. Like we get it. You're always training. We get it. You're always working on something. Like, that's a bit much, and it's just. But it's on brand with who he is. Just a freaking weirdo. Sorry, I have to admit I'm running on almost no sleep. I've worked 12 out of the past. I've worked 12 out of the past 48. No, 20. I've worked 24 out of the past 48 hours. So I'm a little all over the place right now, but I'm going to do my best to finish this and get you guys a good episode. So I'm living on pre-workout right now. That's the only thing that's keeping me alive. And I'm pretty sure after I get this done, I'm going straight to bed. But yeah, it was strange. It was strange, which is what we want to see, right? It's right on par with right on brand with who he is and what we want to see with these two. So it was exciting. It was fun to watch. And, or if you're getting to know me, I'm not really like, I'm not one that really cares for trash talk when I feel like it's fake. And I don't know what their beef is, but it feels like it's real. And it's just so odd. And I think the reason I accept it is because, well, this is hard to say, but because of the last time, but Khabib's so professional about it. Like, he lets you do it, and he kind of just okay, and then but he gets into it, but he's not going to leap across the stage and attack somebody. I say that knowing that he leaped over the cage and attacked somebody, but I feel like that was a very, very like particular circumstance. I don't think that that's something that we have to see every time. Could be wrong. We'll see. But yeah, I just yeah, it was great. It was a great press conference, man. It really got me excited for their fight. Not that I wasn't already excited for it, but it was weird. It was exciting in the weirdest way. So we'll see. So in other news, the Arnold Classic got canceled and out of Cleveland, out of the fear of the coronavirus. You know, people come from all across the world to compete in this, to watch it. And I believe they hold it in Columbus, Ohio. I believe. Maybe it's in Cleveland, but I think it's Columbus. And they canceled it, which is a big deal. I mean, if you're in the bodybuilding world, which I'm definitely not, it's a big deal. So for them to cancel stuff for them to start canceling things, I think it's going to be something we're going to see more often. And we're going to, while this whole scare is going on, while this whole epidemic is going down, we're going to start to see a lot of things change. And, you know, a good point was brought up that the next UFC is in New York. UFC 249 is in New York. And New York, of course, is a melting pot of cultures and people from all across the world. And they may cancel 240, maybe not cancel the whole thing, but move it to somewhere that's a little more landlocked, somewhere that's not as affluent of different cultures and races and you know, people from all across the world. They may, you know, they may move it to somewhere like Columbus. You know, like yeah, there's a this is a big, you know, it's a big fear for people, and it's scary for people right now, and people aren't wanting to leave their houses. So I think what's interesting is I'm curious to see what the UFC does with this, because, you know, a lot of people are not leaving their houses. A lot of people are stocking up. If you try to go buy toilet paper at Costco right now, you will not find any. Like, people are stocking up on toilet paper, which is that's funny to me. Like, there's other things I would think I want to stock up on before toilet paper. You can always, I'm not going to get into it, but, like, that's not the first thing I think, oh, I better stock up on toilet paper. But yeah, but I think it's going to be interesting how the UFC, because I think it's going to cause a lot more pay-per-view buys. I think the attendance is going to be a little lower. Maybe not this event, but as the events go on, or maybe this event's going to be lower. I definitely think New York's going to be a little lower, but I think people will still want to watch these fights, and especially these big fights like this weekend. So the pay-per-view buys will go up. So I wonder if they're going to spin it, and because one of the things that I've heard a lot of people talking about is how big of a star Israel Adesanya is, but he's not necessarily that big of a star in America yet. He's huge. He is big. Oh man, I contradict myself so much. He's not that big. He's huge. He is a big star, but he's not as big as maybe he should be, or as big as some of our other stars that we've had. You know, the GSP, even though he's Canadian, he was huge in America. Anderson Silva, Brazilian, huge in America. Conor McGregor, Irish, huge in America. BJ Penn, Hawaiian, which is American, but huge in America. So, like, and maybe he wasn't the best name to throw in there. He's just a personal favorite of mine, so I just jumped to him. But, you know, so they're saying, you know, Israel's still not there yet, but I wonder if they're going to use the pay-per-view buys to say, oh, maybe he is bigger in America. But I also think there's a large percentage of these pay-per-view buys are coming because people are staying at home, and they want entertainment. They're not going out and, you know, watching it other places. They're buying it from their home. So that the pay-per-view buys for the next few cards may skyrocket, and for this card definitely will be up, because this one's exciting regardless. But I'm interested to see how they spin it, or if they even do spin it, and they just I'm curious to see what they do. But I do have to say, I've been really harsh on Israel. I was saying that, you know, he's faking like he's mad, and his personality bugs me, and you know, things like that. I do have to say though that he does have a lot of redeeming qualities in my eyes. He has a lot of really great qualities that I do see as well. He was really good during the open workouts. That he brought some fans up on the stage and he had them like throwing kicks in a contest, and he gave the winner tickets to this fight. Like, that's huge. Can you imagine, you don't have tickets, you just want to see him so bad, so you go to his open workouts, he just happens to pull you up on stage and just has you throw some kicks, and then you do it, and then you're just like, okay, here you go, come to my fight now. Like, that's awesome. Like, that's a dream come true. Like, you just want to see him so bad. You just want to be around the event so bad, but you don't have the money to go to the fights. So you just do what you can. So you go to the free open workouts, and the next thing you know, you're going to the fights. That's awesome. That's so cool that he did that for his fans. So I really appreciate that. The other thing is, he's setting a precedent for all the people in his division, and it's working. So, I'm not on the train that Yoel Romero doesn't deserve this, and Izzy's giving him, a gift because everyone's scared to fight him. Yoel Romero absolutely deserves this. First of all, he went all the rounds with Robert Whittaker in some of the most classic fights we've ever seen. And Robert, the second fight with Rob could have gone to Yoel. It went to Robert. Robert was a champion. All that went down. Izzy went and fought him. The division was kind of messed for a while. Yoel kept fighting, kept taking fights and fighting beasts and the toughest guys in the division. He ends up losing to Paulo Costa, another one that goes to the distance, and Paulo's no joke. So the winner of that, no matter what, was going to get the next title shot. So you go the distance in a fight, a close fight, and against the person who becomes the number 2 contender. It was so close, he could have easily been the number 2 contender. Which would have been, no one would have questioned it then. No one would have said, oh, Izzy's just giving him this gift. No, he would have been the rightful number 2 contender. So, then Paulo Costa gets hurt. Well, he went the distance with Paulo Costa, and in some people's eyes, he could have won that. He could have got the decision. So, to say that like he doesn't deserve it at all, and that Izzy's just gifting it to him, I just don't think it's fair. I don't think it's a fair assessment. He definitely deserves to be there. But Izzy didn't have to give it to him. Technically, he didn't have to. He didn't have to, but he did anyways because he's setting this precedent. And like he said a million times, the division was so jammed up for a long time. I'm just going to go in and fight. I'm just going to fight these guys. I'm going to fight the people that no one wants to fight. And I'm going to make this division an active division. And so, hats off to him for doing that because he didn't have to. But at the same time, let's not disrespect Yoel and be like he doesn't deserve to be there. Of course he deserves to be there. And the only reason he is there is because Paulo Costa got injured. And that's the other exciting story. And this is where I say, oh, Israel is kind of doing this because Israel is making people want to be active in this division. Paulo Costa knew he was hurt, went to Australia to call out Izzy. He gets the fight. He signs the contract. Then he tries to sneak and go get his surgery behind Dana's back and hope that it's just going to be healed in the time for him to take the fight. That doesn't work. Dana finds out. He has to get it looked at. They're like, he's definitely not ready to fight. And he's like, so he tells him whatever, a certain amount of time, like 6 months or whatever. And then he's like, no, I'll be ready for that. And Dana's like, a doctor is going to have to tell me that you're good to go. So he goes and finds just some buddy of his to call Dana and say that he's a doctor and say that he's good to go, that he's ready to fight. He was going to fight with this arm injury just because he wanted to fight so bad. And like, that's awesome. That's so cool. Like, I'm glad it didn't happen because, you want him to be at his best. You want him to be able to perform at his best, but he just wanted to fight. He just wanted this fight, and so he was willing to lie, cheat, and steal in order to get this fight. And that just, I think that speaks to the leader of the division. The leader of the division is causing these people to want to step forward, to want to step up, to want to fight. And that speaks to him being a great champion, man. Like, as much as I crap on some of the stuff he does and some of his antics and some of the way he acts, a lot of other ways I have to say, man, he's great. He's great for the sport. He's great. And I do appreciate a lot that he does. I watched an interview with him and Ariel Helwani, and it was the interview where I felt like he was being himself the most, and I really appreciated it. I was like, man, I wish this was the version of him that we could always get. I wish this was the guy that we could always get. He was joking around, smiling, laughing, cracking jokes, and not like these planned responses, these planned jokes, these planned digs or whatever. It was just natural. It was just him just hanging out in his hotel room and just being himself, and it was really enjoyable. So, I always feel like I'm a hater on him, and I just had to like explain that I'm definitely not. There are things that I don't think he's perfect by any means, but I do think that he is great, and I do think that his skill speaks for itself. I don't need to go off and be like, well, he's so talented. His skill speaks for itself. Personality wise, I'm always gonna have my ups and downs. I'm a very picky person about people I want to listen to or personalities that I want to be around or whatever. So I think that he's great. Let's see. Oh, so I got called out on my last. This is a little piece of information I found out, because a lot of people were talking about the fight last week with Joseph Benavidez and Davison Figueredo, and the people were like, they just need to do a rematch. There was a headbutt, which I already spoke on that. I don't think that's deserving of an automatic rematch. I don't think that he was really robbed. You hit heads, and both of you are going to be messed up. Maybe Joe is more messed up, but it's not like there was this clear advantage that Davison got from the headbutt and that he was able to capitalize and win the fight off of that. If you clash heads with someone, both your heads get hit. Both your heads are going to hurt. So I'm just whatever. But I would not count on the rematch so fast. According to a reliable source, that's not one of my sources, but it was on another podcast I heard earlier today, that all of Davison's USADA results have not come back yet, and usually if they haven't come back, that's usually means they're retesting, and so there may be a suspension down the line. I don't want to guess too much or put a rumor out there, but all of his tests have not come back yet, and that usually means they're retesting, so they could be finding something, so there may be a suspension. If so, that's definitely not good for the division at all. That's definitely probably worst case scenario for that division. So, yeah, keep your fingers crossed that everything comes back clean. All right, so I got called out on my last episode by a listener, Binary Skilla, I believe. He called me out on a comment I made, and I need to clarify that I was wrong. So here we go. I said that Joanna Jedrzejczyk has not changed her style since going to ATT, or that she's ever changed her style, and that it's always been the same, and that opponents, it's kind of easy to plan for her because it's basically the same. It's basically, there's not a lot of evolution in her skills. So it's if you've always been watching her as a female in the division coming through the division, you're looking at her as the champ, and you're like, one day I got to face her. So when you're not training for a camp, you're always training for her. And since she's not really evolving, you're really able to you have so much film and tape on her because it's always the same. And he said, you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. She has changed her style. And then he directed me towards a breakdown video from Luke Thomas, one of my favorites. And it was his explanation as to how she has evolved in her MMA career, and kind of a short time that there was kind of a, within a few years there was a kind of a big change in her style. And at first I said, you know, he pointed out a couple things. He was talking about like her boxing, that she was primarily a boxer, and I thought that's what he was saying, was just that she was primarily a boxer. And I was like, I sent him that she started out primarily a boxer. So I sent him a response saying, bro, she's been a kickboxer since she was 16 years old. She's always been a kickboxer. And then he sent me the clip, and because I was like, well, I want to hear what you're saying. I want to hear your side of it, or what you're alluding to, because over message you don't really get what they're trying to say. So I was like, you know, send it to me. I want to learn. And so he did, and he sent me the breakdown, and so then I was able to see what he was saying. And what he was saying was, earlier in her career, she was a kickboxer that was boxer heavy. She didn't utilize her kicks that much. She did use them, but she was pretty much basically just throwing hands, and she used her jab a lot more, and so that was her primary. She was getting a lot of finishes in her stand-up. She's getting a lot of finishes in her fights because she was, you know, dropping people with her hands. And then she changed up her style and became more kick heavy in her kickboxing style. And so the distance changed, because now she's trying to keep everybody at the end of her kick. She became more of a point fighter, because she wasn't dropping people with her hands as much, because now she's further back, and she's kicking. So now it's more of a point style fighting rather than a finished fighter, which is why most of her fights in the recent fights have gone to the decision, rather than earlier in her career when she was finishing people with her hands. So you know, in a way, me holding on to my pride, saying, well, I'm kind of right, because she's still a kickboxer. She's just a kick-heavy kickboxer instead of a boxing-heavy kickboxer. But I mean, truth is truth, and her style has changed, and it has changed in a way to where you kind of have to plan different for her. Before, you were looking out for punches and trying not to get finished. Now you're, you know, trying to close the distance, because she's keeping you at a distance with her legs, and she's getting decision wins. So, you know, hats off to him for calling me out on it. I appreciate, you know, learning and being taught. You know, when I'm watching it, you know, I still saw her as a kickboxer, and then I look at her today and I still see her as a kickboxer. So that's what was my thought process, but you know, I was corrected and I was wrong. So hats off, and big shout out to Binary Skilla. I think that's what his name is. I know it's Binary something. But yeah, man, thank you for the follow. Thank you for, you know, reaching out to me and correcting me on it. I don't want to be out here making an ass out of myself. So thank you. The last, I was watching the Luke Thomas live broadcast today, and he, you know, always answers questions. And someone asked him a question that I thought was real interesting, and you know, I got to thinking about it, and he gave an answer that I agreed with, but I thought there's got to be a better way. So the question was, why do so many wrestlers that have good fundamental wrestling fall in love with their striking, i.e., Yoel Romero, Colby Covington, Kamaru Usman? Well, I guess they still kind of use their wrestling. But he pointed out a bunch of wrestlers that Johnny Hendricks is a good one. They have good wrestling that go away from it and primarily stick to their striking. And it's usually boxing. They usually go from growing up wrestling, to learning boxing, and then they really just want to use their hands. And I was just thought DC's another one that you don't see him doing as much wrestling as he used to. He really likes using his hand. He really likes boxing. And and Luke's response to that was, well, because wrestling isn't really a finishing art. There's not a lot of finishes. I mean, in actual wrestling match, you pin someone to the ground, but that don't work in MMA. So they need to develop a part of their game that actually finishes the fight, because that's the easiest way to get the win. Instead of grinding it out for 3 rounds or 5 rounds every single time trying to win in a wrestling match, just go for the finish. And strikes are the easiest way to finish a fight, so that's why they go to that. And I can respect that. There was another part of that. So like a wrestler stance, you're crouched down low, your knees are bent, you're bent over. It's taxing on your body to be in that type of position all the time, especially for the length of a fight. And so stand up allows them to kind of stretch their body, kind of stand up, open up their lungs. And so stand up to them feels a lot more comfortable, which usually helps to their endurance and allows them to be able to go further in the fights, because they're so used to, be this taxing position that this is more relaxing to them. And they know that if they can fall back onto something, they can fall back onto their wrestling. If they need to go to the ground, they can go to the ground and use their wrestling. And so that's why they usually go to striking. And I get it. That all makes sense to me. It really does. And I thought it was a fair enough answer. The question I have though is, all right, so if I'm good on the ground, I'm a good wrestler, I know how to control people on the ground. Wouldn't a more just a more fluid transition be to become proficient at jiu-jitsu? A lot of wrestlers, they'll learn 3 or 4 submissions and they'll be good at maybe 1 or 2. But you're already used to manipulating the body on the ground. Wouldn't it be smoother to learn how to transition from aggressive, powerful, explosive wrestling moves to a lighter flow, transitioning, baiting, submission heavy jiu-jitsu game? To me, that would be the easier transition, which means you can use your wrestling really well to get them to the ground. And then once they're on the ground, then you have the ability to control, put pressure on them, be heavy, but then you also have the ability to, switch into a jiu-jitsu heavy sequence to put him in to submit him and finish the fight. So I agree with what he's saying, that there isn't really a finishing maneuver in wrestling, but I feel like it'd be so much easier to just learn jiu-jitsu if you are a wrestler. There's a lot of crossover in the two arts. So in my mind, I'm just like, yeah, I get what you're saying, but I don't feel like boxing is the easiest. You're literally going to a completely different thing. You're going to a thing that wants to keep them on the ground to a thing that wants to be standing. And I get that the fight starts standing, but I mean, you can get someone to the ground. If you go for it, you can get them to the ground. It's not like you're going to eat a knee every single time you shoot. You should be learning all the techniques, but you can learn enough techniques to keep you standing to the point where you can close the distance and get them to the ground. I mean, Ronda Rousey did it for her entire career until she decided she was a boxer. For her entire career, she learned how to be just proficient enough in the stand-up to get close to him, to judo throw, to take him down, to put him in an armbar. It was beautiful. It was beautiful how she did it. And so she was able to build a career on that until she decided, I'm a boxer now, and I'm going to just stand and bang with everybody. And then she's just getting dropped. So to me, I don't think that I don't think that boxing is the natural, I don't think it's the natural transition for a wrestler. I think that it's the one that has been the most common, but I don't feel like it's the most natural. I feel like you could go, jiu-jitsu would be a better finishing art for them to study. But you can let me know what you think. I'm curious to know all of your opinions on it and why if you think I'm right, if you think I'm wrong, or, just if you think that there's something better. If you think that there's a better transition for wrestlers or anything, I was going to say that you look at these other martial arts like jiu-jitsu, and you don't see like jiu-jitsu artists being like, well, I really need to. They usually stay true to jiu-jitsu. They usually learn just enough stand-up, and then they just stay true to their jiu-jitsu. But again, jiu-jitsu is a finishing art, so that wouldn't be a good argument. So, but yeah, just what are your thoughts on it? What do you feel? What do you think? Let me know. I'm always love to hear your opinions, and you might get a shout out like Binary Skilla if you comment, if you say something that really makes me think or really makes me study a little deeper. So yeah, again, man, I'm always thankful for anybody who listens to this podcast. We're always looking for sponsors. If you are looking to sponsor, if you know anybody who's looking to sponsor, I would love to do this full time, man. I love it. I love doing this. Thankful for Still Fist. I hope the rest of the kickboxing event went as good as the very first fight, because it was a good one. And I'm thankful for all of you for listening. You can find us on Instagram at Still Fist Fight. You can find us on Facebook at Still Fist Fight Night. You can find this podcast on YouTube under the Undefeated by Choice channel. You can find us on iTunes and iHeartRadio. But these individual sessions that I do right here are only on YouTube. So until next time, be good to yourself, be good to each other. I love you.